There are mysteries that begin with a crime scene. A body discovered in a forest. A disappearance witnessed by dozens. A cryptic note left behind. And then there are mysteries that begin with something even stranger. A man checks into a motel. Nobody notices him. Nobody remembers much about him. A few days later, he's dead. No signs of foul play. No obvious clues. No frantic family members searching for him. No missing persons report. It's as if he stepped out of thin air, lived for a few days under a false name, and then disappeared from existence forever. For nearly 17 years, investigators, internet sleuths, amateur detectives, and curious strangers across the world would ask one haunting question. Who was Lyle Stevik? Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the most unsettling unidentified person cases in modern American history. This is the story of a man who erased himself. Or at least tried to. Welcome back to Stranger Thangs. The Check-In. December 2001. The small town of Amanda Park sits near Washington State's Olympic Peninsula. It's a quiet place. The kind of town people pass through on their way somewhere else. The kind of place where a stranger might blend in without attracting much attention. On December 16th, a man arrived at the Lake Quinault Inn. He appeared to be in his 20s. Maybe early 30s. He was clean. Polite. Soft-spoken. Nothing about him immediately raised alarms. When he checked in, he signed the motel registry with a name. Lyle Stevik. It was a name nobody had ever heard before. A name that would soon become famous. The man paid cash. He requested a room. And then he settled in. Witnesses would later describe him as quiet and reserved. He wasn't social. He wasn't rude. He simply seemed like someone who wanted to be left alone. Over the next few days, employees noticed little things. The man spent time alone. He watched television. He occasionally left his room. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that suggested the mystery that was about to unfold. Then, on December 18th, he asked for an extension on his stay. Again, nothing strange. The request was granted. Nobody knew these were among the final interactions he would ever have. Room number 5. December 19th. Housekeeping approached the room. The television was on. But nobody answered the door. Employees became concerned. Eventually, someone entered. What they found would launch one of America's most haunting unidentified person investigations. The man who called himself Lyle Stevik was dead. Authorities quickly determined it was suicide. No evidence suggested anyone else had been involved. No signs of a struggle. No indication of murder. The room was relatively orderly. The television continued playing to an audience of none. Investigators began the process of identifying the deceased. At first, they expected the mystery to be solved quickly. Most unidentified person cases are resolved within days. Sometimes hours. Someone recognizes a face. A fingerprint matches a database. A family member reports a missing loved one. But this case would prove different. Very different. The identification documents he provided were false. The name was false. And there was virtually nothing linking him to his previous life. It was as though the man had carefully prepared to become nobody. The name that wasn't real. As investigators dug deeper, they quickly learned that Lyle Stevik didn't exist. At least not officially. No driver's license. No birth certificate. No records. Nothing. The name itself appeared unusual. Where had it come from? Eventually, researchers discovered a curious clue. The surname Stevik appears in Joyce Carol Oates' 1987 novel You Must Remember This. In the book, a character named Lee Stevik appears. Was that the source? Many investigators believed so. If true, it suggested something fascinating. The deceased hadn't selected a random fake name. He may have chosen one from literature. That tiny detail would ignite endless speculation. Was he a reader? A student? Someone with a deep interest in fiction? Or was the connection merely coincidence? Nobody knew. But it was one of the only clues available. And for years, people would obsess over it, building a profile of a ghost. Without an identity, investigators focused on reconstructing the man himself. Who was he? What could his body tell us? Forensic examinations revealed several details. He was likely between 25 and 35 years old. His health appeared relatively good. No major signs of chronic illness. No obvious indicators of homelessness. His clothing was ordinary. Nothing distinctive. Nothing traceable. The more investigators looked, the stranger things became. There were no clear tattoos. No obvious identifiers. No unique belongings. No breadcrumbs. It felt almost intentional. Internet communities eventually became fascinated with the mystery. The police actually released an autopsy photo of the man's face in hopes that someone, somewhere, would recognize him. Photos of the unidentified man spread across websites dedicated to cold cases and missing persons. Thousands of people stared into his face, trying to recognize him, trying to remember a friend, a coworker, a cousin, a former classmate. Years passed. Nobody came forward. The internet takes over. By the late 2000s, the case had become one of the internet's most famous mysteries. Forums buzzed with theories. Some believed he had escaped an abusive past. Others thought he may have suffered from severe depression and deliberately traveled far from home. Some theorized he was involved in intelligence work, witness protection, government programs, secret identities. Theories multiplied because evidence was scarce. Human beings dislike unanswered questions. When information disappears, imagination rushes in to fill the vacuum. One popular theory suggested he had intentionally traveled to a remote location so his body would remain unidentified. Another proposed he wanted to spare his family from discovering what he planned to do. Some argued the opposite. Perhaps he wanted to be found. Perhaps leaving a face behind was his final message. Across countless message boards, strangers attempted to reconstruct an entire life from a few photographs and motel records. It was like trying to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle with only 6 pieces. The forensic revolution. As years became decades, technology advanced. DNA analysis improved dramatically. Genealogical databases exploded in popularity. Cases once considered impossible suddenly became solvable. Investigators revisited numerous unidentified person cases. Lyle Stevik remained among the most requested, among the most discussed, among the most heartbreaking. Unlike homicide investigations, this case carried a different emotional weight. Nobody was hunting a killer. Instead, investigators were trying to return a name to someone who had lost it. A fundamental human truth emerged. Regardless of how someone dies, most people believe they deserve to be remembered. To have a name. A history. A place in the story of humanity. And so the search continued. DNA and the breakthrough. In the late 2010s, investigators partnered with advanced forensic genealogy efforts. DNA became the key. Rather than searching traditional criminal databases, experts examined family connections, distant relatives, shared genetic markers, tiny fragments of inherited history. The process was painstaking. Family trees stretched across generations. Researchers followed branches, eliminated possibilities, started over, repeated the process again. Slowly, a picture emerged. The mystery was finally beginning to crack. After nearly 17 years, investigators had found the answer. Not a suspect. Not a conspiracy. A name. A real one. The reveal. In May 2018, authorities announced that Lyle Stevik had been identified. His real name was William Burgess Powell. He had been born in 1976. He was from North Carolina. He had family. He had a history. He had existed. The revelation stunned the internet. After years of speculation, the answer was both satisfying and bittersweet. Many had imagined international conspiracies, witness protection programs, secret lives. Instead, the truth appeared profoundly human. A young man had struggled. A young man had traveled across the country. A young man had died alone. Authorities released limited information out of respect for surviving family members. The family requested privacy. Investigators honored that request. As a result, many details of his personal life remain unknown even today. And perhaps that's fitting. For years, strangers had searched for his identity. Once they found it, the story belonged to his family, not the internet. The conspiracies that remain. Even after identification, conspiracy theories persisted. Some questioned why he traveled so far. Others wondered whether additional secrets remained hidden. Why Washington? Why that motel? Why that particular name? Why leave so few clues? The truth is we may never know. And that's what makes this story unusual. The central mystery was solved. Yet many smaller mysteries remain. The questions surrounding motive. The thoughts in his mind. The decisions that brought him there. Those answers vanished with him. Not every mystery ends with every piece in place. Sometimes investigators recover only the corner pieces. The rest remains hidden forever. The man behind the mystery. For 17 years, the world knew him as Lyle Stevik. An alias. A placeholder. A ghost. People analyzed photographs. Compared facial features. Constructed elaborate theories. Tried desperately to give a nameless man back his identity. In the end, science succeeded where traditional investigation could not. The mystery was solved. But the story remains haunting. Because at its heart, this was never really about a conspiracy. It was about loneliness, identity, memory, and a universal human fear. The fear of disappearing. For nearly 2 decades, nobody knew his name. Today, we do. William Burgess Powell. A real person. A real life. A mystery solved. Yet somehow still haunting. I have been your host Malachi. Thank you for joining us for another journey into the strange, the forgotten, and the unexplained. If you enjoyed this episode of Stranger Thangs, be sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with fellow mystery seekers. Until next time. Keep questioning. Keep exploring. And remember, some mysteries aren't about discovering who someone was. Sometimes they're about remembering that they were here at all.